I have nothing bad to say about this top. We had many issues. I really like the shape of this t-shirt. Hi, welcome back to my channel, La Fraise. I'm Noémie, I'm a student in costume making in Brussels, and this week I'm coming back with a new series. I think the worst kept secret out there, because literally in the comments when I was finishing my shirt series, people were like, you should do t-shirt next. And I was like, how did you guess? So I was already planning to do t-shirts. You guys also asked me to do t-shirts, and you will have seen in my vlogs that I bought an insane amount of jerseys. So I think you have guessed what was coming. And basically this new series is all about free t-shirt patterns. So I am sewing up for you. I've sewn about half so far. I'm sewing every single free t-shirt pattern I could find out there, and that is a lot. That is a big amount of t-shirts. So let me pull out my notes. You could wonder why I'm reviewing free t-shirts, because those patterns are free anyway, so you can get them for free, not wasting any money. But I'm actually considering that it is quite a useful series, because there are so many free options and you might not know where to start. And I think if you sew a t-shirt that you end up not being happy with, even though the pattern was free, you wasted your time, you wasted your money on the fabric, and you wasted some fabric. So I'm hoping to do all the research work for you guys so that you can just sew your t-shirts and kind of know what you're getting into. I cover already quite a few things in those videos, but if at the end of this review you realize that there's a point you were really curious about and that I have not covered, please mention it in the comments and I will show that I include this in my future reviews. Two more things before I start actually showing you the t-shirts we have today. I am wearing today the Estelle flounce top by Sinclair Patterns, and I was actually in the tester group for this pattern release. I'm actually on the product page, which is kind of cool. But so I will also mention this one, but all at the end, because it's not part of the free t-shirt. I will talk about this, but only if you're interested. So if you're not interested by this one, you can just skip after I've talked about the three t-shirts. And I also have another point I want to quickly talk about, which is after my projector sewing video, there were so many interesting conversations in the comment, and Daily Sews and Stuff, which is a YouTube channel dedicated to projector sewing, she actually came and helped me with a couple of tips. And one thing that I was really struggling with was keeping the center front on the center front, and what she told me has actually saved all of my t-shirts. I don't know how I would have cut them well without her tip, and it is to line up the center front of your piece with a line on your mat, and then to line up your t-shirt with that line on your mat, ignoring where it actually projects on the t-shirt once it's on there. So hope that makes sense the way I explained it, but that actually was such a good tip, and it really made the projector sewing a lot easier. And also in general, not only her but many people said to use a smaller rotary cutter. So if you are also on the projector journey, those are two tips that are really helpful. One thing you might notice in the fit of the different t-shirts is that I never grade for my hips with t-shirts specifically. I would for a top or whatever. My waist and bust are generally one size, and my hips are generally up to 4 sizes bigger, like sometimes it's crazy. And I just do not like to grade my t-shirts for my hips, because I do not like a t-shirt that looks like a triangle. So you will see that often it's the case here as well, so I can show you. Often the t-shirt will either pull a little bit here because it can't go over my hips. It kind of like sits on top and you have a little bit of ruching here, or you can see if I really pull it on the hips that it's very tight. It's something I decide on my t-shirts, but so if you're wondering about the fit and you're like, oh, it's a weird fit, it might be my hips, because I don't grade for them, because I refuse. So just something to keep into account when you see the different t-shirts. So we are going to start with the Stellan tee, which is by French Navy. I have made a size D, as you can see on the size chart that I'm going to put on the screen now. I chose the smaller size between the two options that I could have chosen, but because I knew that there would be already quite a lot of ease on this t-shirt, I went with the smaller size. I don't like my t-shirts to be too oversized. I generally find that it's not super flattering, so I went with the smaller size of the two. With this pattern you get an A4 and A0 in a projector file, so that is absolutely great. By the way, it seems obvious, but I will link everything in the description of this video. You get one view with this pattern, which is one short sleeves view. They do not mention a difficulty level. The size goes from a 31 to a 60-inch bust. Something I liked to write down in this review is whether or not the pattern asks you to put a clear elastic in the shoulders, and why I worry and bother about that is that I find that a pattern that does not tell you to reinforce your shoulders, I'm already feeling like they don't care about the longevity of your garment afterwards. So that's for me an indicator of, do they want you to make the best possible t-shirt? So here they say reinforce shoulder seams by your preferred method. So I did put an elastic in my shoulders. By the way, I'm saying it now, but like I put an elastic in the shoulders of all of my t-shirts, whether the pattern said to do it or not, I just did it. But so just for info, here they do mention it, so that's great. The seam allowance is 6 millimeters, which is honestly a little bit painful when you're just sewing it on the sewing machine. So something to keep in mind if that's something you don't love, but I made it work, and I made everything work with the seam allowance planned in the pattern. But I think if I had to do them in the future, for example this one, I would just make the seam allowance a bit bigger and do it 1 centimeter. I find this more comfortable. And a 6 millimeter seam allowance is actually 1/4 of an inch. So I found the instructions really good, everything was really clear. They've even planned for a back reinforcement, which I didn't do because this fabric is already quite bulky, and I think if I had used that to make a back reinforcement, it would have been a bit too much. But I think it's great that they have the option for back reinforcement, because that means you can really make a good quality t-shirt with this. They don't tell you to top stitch your neckband here, and I have done it because I really like not having the seam allowance flap here. They don't tell you to do it because obviously they have the back seam allowance caught in the reinforcement, but I still like the front to be also top stitched. So obviously you can just veer off the pattern, I'm just telling you how it is. And I wrote they have lots of tips and options for a very professional finish. I was very impressed, the drawings were really clear, and I had a good experience with the instructions overall. The hem is curved. Curved hem is a bit more difficult to sew if you are a beginner, so something to keep in mind if it's your first t-shirt. Maybe either straighten the hem, or you know, just know that this is a little bit more of a hurdle, but I think it makes for a very nice shape and a very nice finish with the curved hem. Just something to keep in mind if it's your very first knit, it makes it a little bit more difficult. Last note, I do love that they have a note before you start sewing saying don't forget to pre-wash your fabric. I think it's a great thing to mention it, a great addition, so I'm very pleased about this. So generally for me, yes, for the look, I really like it. The neckline is quite high, but it would be really easy to adapt if I wanted something a little bit more open here. I think the fit is great. Length of the sleeves, love it. Length of the top, love it. Not too long, not too short. I mean, just nothing bad to say. I would just change the seam allowance for my own preference, but I have nothing bad to say about this top. So we're off to a good start. T-shirt number 2. This is the Kirsten top by Maria Denmark. She calls it the Kirsten kimono tee. This is not a name I will be using. I don't think it's an accurate way to describe this, and it's also not really culturally appropriate, so I will always call this a grown-on sleeves and not a kimono sleeves. Also, like, yeah. This one we had many issues, but let's just get started. So the grown-on tee Kirsten by Maria Denmark. One, I made the size M. I will show my measurement on screen so you can see and compare for yourself what an M looks like. Now you have only an A4 with this pattern, and it's unlayered, so if you're using your projector it's kind of a pain. And also if you're cutting your pattern but it's hard for you to follow the right line or anything, like this one's a bit more tricky because the file is not layered. You can't see only one size, you have to see all of the sizes. And if you want to use a projector, you need to reorder the PDF because the PDF is not made so that it works on a projector. So you need to reorder everything. So already we were off to an interesting start, but it's going to get worse. from my fault, to be fully honest, from my fault. It has one view, which is this short sleeves view, so that's the only thing you get in this pattern. No difficulty level mentioned, and the size is a 31 to 50 inch bust. For the shoulder reinforcement, Maria recommends you to actually top stitch with a straight stitch, and that's true that it does reinforce your shoulder a little bit, so she has mentioned the reinforcement, so we are happy about that. Now, there is no seam allowance planned in this pattern, and I will not blame Maria because you should read your instructions before you sew a pattern. Fine, I recognize this, but I personally never ever do it. I follow whatever's written on the pattern pieces, and yeah, I just didn't realize that there was no seam allowance to this. I'm really lucky and happy that I still fit in this, you know, because when I saw that I was sewing it without any seam allowances, I was like, it's going to be a massive disaster. It's fine, I still fit into it, but if you think that it's a little bit snug, it's probably because I didn't use the seam allowances. I sewed it as small as I could, obviously, because I knew that I was already working at a deficit. But so something for you to take into account when you are sewing it, don't cut your project and then worry about the seam allowance, because you need to add it before you cut, which is quite uncommon in patterns nowadays, but it still happens, as you can see. The instructions are quite simple and short, and they have photos, which is my least favorite way to communicate things in a booklet, but so you know. It's fine to understand, it's very to the point, so you don't have a ton of extra information that could lose you. It might be a little bit too simple for me, but that's how it is. The hem is straight, so as you can see here. And the neckband is actually not within the pattern pieces on the pattern, and I really don't like when that's the case, because then you need to go and add this, and I just like to have the neckband within my pattern pieces. I cut everything at the same time, and you don't risk forgetting it, you don't risk running out of fabric and not realize that you still need to go and cut your neckband. So for me, I'm torn, because I think I'm really happy with this t-shirt, and I don't wear things that are a bit more fitted that often. I think I'm kind of happy with how all of this looks. I really didn't like the constructions of the neckband, and if I had realized it would look like this, I would definitely not have done it this way. I'm also a bit confused, because if I put her photo on the screen, I find that hers is a lot more bateau than mine, like, you know, a lot more flat here. Don't know if you can see that. I find that my neckband almost looks like a normal one, when hers definitely looks like a bateau neckband. So a bit confused there. So I really don't like constructions on the neckband. If I had to do this again, I would not follow the instructions, and I would do only what I want, basically. But yeah, I like the finished product, but the instructions were not my favorite. The construction of the neckband I don't like at all. I don't love photos in the thing. I found it quite annoying to have no seam allowances, even though I recognize that this is my fault. So for this one, I would say, well, if you really like the look, because I feel like it's quite a different look from the other t-shirts we're going to look at in this series, it's still worth it, it's still free, but I would feel free to go my own way. Actually, I would take the pattern pieces, say thank you Maria for the pattern pieces, and then move on and do as I like, because I didn't like following the instructions for this one. Okay. This one is the I Am Blandine from I Am Patterns. I really like the shape of this t-shirt. I think if I had known how oversized it would be, now I think I would do it like one size smaller, but anyway, I wanted to make everything to my size so that you can see what everything looks like. So first note, I find it a little bit annoying. So the instructions are in French and in English. If you want to see the centimeters, you need to go and look at the French instructions. They have only inches in English. And in general, I have seen other brands doing this. I already don't like it, because in the English speaking world, everyone doesn't use inches, and having to go to the French to see the centimeters, I'm already like, that For me, that doesn't work, that doesn't compute. You know, I understand using only centimeters for the French because I don't know what they do in Quebec, but I don't believe that anywhere French speaking uses inches, but they could be. I don't think so though. But there's definitely places where you speak English where you use centimeters. So first annoyance, I had to go to the French speaking instructions to have the centimeters. And then I have to say, with my shape and my size, I'm kind of the same size for my bust and waist, and then I'm like 4 sizes bigger for my hips. That's how I am shaped. With the Blandine, I am 1 size bigger for my waist and then again bigger for my hips. And that kind of made me feel like crap because I'm like, how hourglass do they want us to be? Like, I'm already pretty hourglass and feel like it's the first time a size chart is telling me that my waist is too big for my bust size. And obviously it's fine, and you know, it's only a size chart and it's only a tool. And like, I don't mind because I know that compared to a standard shape, my hips are always quite a few sizes larger. So all good, all fine, I don't care. But this is the only brand where my waist is not matching my bust, and it just made me a bit like, what do you want us to be? I don't know, I just feel like then for everyone as well, the expectation of your shape is a little bit unrealistic. I don't know. What you're getting with this pattern is the A4, A3, A0, US letter, projector in pink and projector in white. So you get a lot for this free pattern. You also get a ton of different views. If I pull them out, so you have the normal t-shirt, you have the t-shirt with the turn-up sleeves, which is what I have done here. You have a t-shirt with 3/4 length sleeves and they're a bit balloony. Then you have the dress version, so with or without the cuffs, and then with or without the 3/4 length. So basically you have normal with cuffs, with long sleeves, and then everything is possible as a dress. So many options with this free pattern. It is marked as simple in the difficulty level, and I feel like it's fair, even though I will have comments on the neckline, but yeah, I will call it simple. That's good. It's a t-shirt. And then the size is a 31 to 45 inch bust. Elastic in the shoulder, they don't mention anything, that's just none of the problem. So I added elastics in my shoulder, but just so you know, they do not plan any reinforcements. I feel like it's particularly important if you make the dress version as well, because there's going to be a lot of weight on those seams. So something I would have liked to see, but no one's perfect. The seam allowance is 1 centimeter, which I love. That's 3/8 of an inch, and that's a seam allowance I really appreciate to use, especially with knits. The instructions, there is so much information. Too much. Who reads this? I don't know. The supplies, the recommended fabric, the measurements, that's everything that's normal. But before you start, wash your fabric. For me, like, just say wash your fabric, but they have a little like explanation, like how you should wash your fabric, blah, blah, blah. Read the instructions. They tell you to read it. Well, it's fine. I didn't do it for the Kirsten. I regret it, but they have a paragraph to tell. How can I say this? I feel like everything could have been much shorter, but they tell you read the instructions, and then they explain what reading instructions mean. Measure, they explain, and that's a whole chunk. How to measure your body, seam allowances, blah blah blah.
Place and cut, make a 12, test, secure your seam. Finishing, the legend, here's your block, going forward, prepare to sew, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 different things. Cut your fabric, 1, 2, 3.
Keeps going on, and I'm just like, I haven't even started making this t-shirt, and I'm like, I'm already over reading those instructions. Luckily, once you get on the actual instructions for the t-shirt, that's more succinct and also just enough information, because I think you do want to hold people's hands enough if they have never sewn before, but not so much that you lose them. So it's quite a little chunk every time, but I think it's fine. I do like that they have a big title, which means that if you know already the step, you can just look at the title, follow the title, but if you need the explanation, you go and look a bit more into it. So I'm going to say yes for the instructions, but the booklet beforehand, I was like, who is reading so much text? I don't get it. The hem is straight here, which, oh my god, this t-shirt has a dark secret. Once you see it, you will never be able to unsee it. So as you can see, I have pattern matched this beautifully. I'm very proud of myself. Ooh, pattern match, beautiful. If I show you here, you see that the hem is perfectly leveled with the lines. If I show you the front, can you see here? So actually, when I was cutting the hem to try to make it straight with the line, I realized that I can't because it's in a spiral. So I have pattern matched it, but slightly wonky. So it's very sad because now my hem at the front is not straight. No one's going to notice, it's fine, but I know it and it hurts. It really hurts. So much effort and then it's like not straight, but that's life. I think if you just see this, it's a very nice top. Finally, I had a bit of an angry moment with the neckline that they plan in this pattern. They want you to use a bias tape, and I looked at people's make of this and I was like, the way they want you to do the neckline, it kind of like stands up almost on your neck, and I was just like, there is no way I'm doing this. By the time I sewed this one, I was 10 t-shirts in and I was like, I am not sacrificing something I think is so nice, and I didn't realize at the time I had messed up the hem. I was like, I'm not sacrificing a very nice t-shirt to make the neckline according to the instructions. I'm over this. So I sacrificed the neckline. I did it my preferred way. I'm very sorry, but I do not like the way they finished the neckline, and I also don't like in the instructions. Basically, they give you 2 ways to put the bias tape, and they explain from start to finish the 2 ways, when actually it's literally the same thing, and at one moment in the constructions it differs a little bit. So instead of saying at that moment do this or that, you have the 2 instructions, and I spent so long trying to understand what was going on to then decide I didn't want to do it. And yeah, the neckline, I was like, I refuse to do it this way. I had done the Kirsten neckline already in the way I didn't like, and I was like, I've done it once, I am not doing it again. No, I'm doing my neckline, my favorite neckline. Also, I just don't like having a bias tape that's going to contrast, because this t-shirt is not white, it's cream. So if I had a bias tape that's like a pure white, it would be impossible to find the right color for this. So I didn't want to do it, and I did exactly what I wanted. So here we are. I would say the shape of this t-shirt is something I really enjoy. I can totally see myself wearing this a ton in the summer. Also, just something to be careful of. I totally knew this. It's me being distracted by that point because I had made so many t-shirts. When you sew the cuffs here, it's not right side against right side. You need to put the right side of the cuff against the wrong side of the fabric so you can have a really nice and pretty cuff. I did it wrong. I had to unpick everything. Not the pattern's fault. They say it very clearly. They put it in bold, but obviously at that point it gets a little bit much to sew so many t-shirts. But so just if you make it, don't make the mistakes I've made. Like I made the mistakes so that you can be safe of them. Just do right side against wrong side, and it's going to look really nice. So yeah, just really happy with this one in general. Really, I have, except the neckline, which I have not followed. So with this t-shirt, I'm really happy. Obviously, I'm sad about my hem, but that's not the pattern's fault. So yeah, it's a good one for me. So those were my 3 first t-shirts. This is a new series, so there's a lot more coming your way, and I hope it will be helpful for you to decide which 3 t-shirts you want to make. If there's anything I haven't covered in that you're curious about, please let me know and I will make sure to include it in the next review. Now let me quickly talk about the Estelle t-shirt, which I'm wearing now. So it's a flouncy top. The first version you saw in the green had the big flounces, and this one has the small flounces. I find it a lot more everyday, a lot more easier to wear because it's obviously a lot less intense. What I particularly love about this t-shirt is that your arm and underarm are, you know, free to move and to breathe. As you know, I'm a sweaty, hot person, and having this extra air is really good for me in the summer, but I still have my shoulders covered with the flounce, so It's like a sleeve but doesn't make you sweat like a sleeve, so it's actually a really good option for me. Sana from Sinclair Patterns actually mentions you do not need to put an elastic in the shoulder because the seam here is short enough, but I do love that she has thought about it and she lets you know that you don't have to do it. There's also a top stitching with a straight stitch on this, so it's quite stable, but I really love that it has been considered, it's not just forgotten. And also one thing I did, so I did the green top first and this was my second one, and when I did the green top I basted the flounce first and then I sewed everything together because it was my first time and I was a bit worried about everything moving. But now with the second one I made here, I was feeling more confident and I did like the pattern mentioned, which is just sew everything in one go. I just want to mention it for you if you're feeling a little bit less confident. You could baste the flounce on the front and back first and then add the side panels, and that just allows you to check that everything is in the right place before you add the side panels. I think that's much nicer. This version here has a narrower neckline than the green one that I was in just before. I think now that the pattern is out, there's also a bit more of a scooped neckline. I did the normal, so not scooped, but in normal, and then the wide for the green, that's a little bit wider here. But just really like these patterns, so I will also link it in the description, and I will let you know the last dark secret of this pattern. If you look at the flowers, I'll come a bit closer so you can see. I cut the whole thing upside down. Can you see that the flowers are pointing down? I think it's totally fine. I think anyone seeing me from far away just sees a blue floral and it's fine, but when you come up close and you know everything's pointing down, I cut the entire thing upside down. It's fine, that's life, but that's what happened with this one. I would like to thank Teresa for tipping me a coffee. Thank you so much, that is so appreciated. Like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to come back for more, and I will see you in the next one. Bye! Oh, sorry, you okay? Okay, what a disaster. One, I rolled on Milo because he likes to sleep on the legs of my swivel chair, but so I moved a tiny bit and I rolled on him, and now he is over there sulking. So great start. Now the assistant is upset. Then I bought big amounts of fabric and I have cut several t-shirts in the same fabric, and I realized I was struggling to find which t-shirt was which is not great when you're trying to review them, but it's fine. I have managed to reorganize everyone. I had post-it notes, so I kind of like cut everything and I had post-it notes on the piles of fabric to know which t-shirt I had to sew with those pieces, but I didn't leave the post-it notes up till now because I thought I'd recognize the shape, but it was more difficult than what I thought, but it's okay. I have found the t-shirt I'm reviewing now. Oh my god, now I can smell the cigarettes from my neighbor, which is something that drives me absolutely nuts. So I've opened the window to try to get the cigarette smell out, but then I'm worried that there's going to be sound. I'm very sorry, I'm trying to survive in here. What a disaster, should I keep filming? Okay, let's just get this done. You also have to... This video is a disaster. This video is a disaster. There is a super cute German Shepherd puppy in the street, like probably no more than 2 months old, but I think he was not allowed to be on the street. Yes, Milo, yes, the puppy is still walking past. And you have to picture that it smells stronger and stronger of smoke in here, so fun times. I was just saying, well, Milo had reasons to get angry because those neighbors actually picked up the poo and left it in the gutter, and I don't understand. It's a real epidemic on my street. People pick up the dog's poo but don't go and put it in the bin, and I just don't get it because you've done half of the work. But then if there's dog poo, sorry, you're not here for that. I'm very sorry. This is hard to stay focused today. And the neck... Oh!